This is the charming Prince Nicholas.
Who's he?
The charming prince.
And what happens to them?
At the end of this story.
Yeah, at the end.
They get MARRIED.
Stories help you organize your life. It's a way to create order out of the memories that are sometimes chaotic. What is in the past is just fragmented and incomplete unless we tell it to ourselves in a way that makes sense. And the future isn't the future yet. It hasn't been lived. So we're always imagining something as a possibility in it. I began teaching crossing borders, autism, and other ways of knowing because I'd always been interested in why do people want to write? And so I wanted to think of a class where people might have been better motivated to write about certain things. And so I had built a lot of relationships around autism in the community, and I knew there was something to be learned in service learning and civic engagement, going out and meeting with families and meeting with someone on the spectrum. It's one of the special classes, my special class among other classes, but that one, for obvious reasons, is unique to me because I have a son who's been living the life on the autism spectrum, and I have been engaged in that. So when I see other people come in contact with either directly with my son or with people who are also on the spectrum, it's meaningful for me to know you might enter with one kind of knowledge and experience and leave with another. There's a fuller way I can engage with people in my community. I don't have to be embarrassed. Autism spectrum disorders, one of the first things that's important is the idea of spectrum. People who have autism can be what's termed high functioning, so they can have language, they can live somewhat independent lives. And there are people who are highly impaired, they might not have language. The sensory input from the world around them might make it hard just to go out in the light. And autism can be understood as, in how it's diagnosed, as an impairment in communication, an impairment in social interactions, and repetitive and sometimes non-functional rituals.
We hope you believe this, but Pat Ponto and Luke Ponto and Tira Luke Ponto can't kiss each other.
People have a hard time reading how other people read the world. The way I just defined autism as a way in which it gets diagnosed. Another way to think about autism and the way in which I also think about it as a different way of knowing. I have a son with autism, and so I don't want to frame his life as impairment. I want to frame it as a life that gets lived in a particular way that I have to adjust to and he has to adjust to in relation to the way I live my life. I find myself telling this story a lot lately, and that is, as a father who has a son with autism, I can't leave him, you know. So in this intimate space of our home, there's this person who's very important to me that creates lots of challenges for me because he experiences the world so differently. There are times in which I do not want this life. I would rather be away and have a different life, a life that isn't as constraining. And it's constrained by being with Jacob. So even though I say it's essential that I be here, I don't always want to be there. And it's 24/7 for Jacob. Someone has to be responsible, be around him all the time. So there's moments I say, I wish I could leave. But we are in it together, so how do we learn to live in it together? And Jacob has taught me that. He was born in March of 1992, so just before his third birthday, we began noticing behaviors that we saw as unusual, not developmentally appropriate. or typical. And so we had him diagnosed at that time. So the thing that I think that happened, though, is that you recognize this idea of storytelling. Whenever you have a child as a parent, no matter what, you've thought about that child into the future and your relationship to him or her. And so there are a lot of these ghost stories that I had written in my head about my son, based upon my own experience, based upon my relationship with my younger brothers. And all those stories cease to be. Not that they could have happened anyway, but now they really have been canceled out. And so there's a mourning period, there's a period of grief, and it's an ongoing, in many ways, of these vivid ideas about the future that are not possible. And then you're putting alongside that the future that is and is possible. So there's, I think, for parents who have someone on the spectrum, it's living in this multi-layeredness of stories. Wife Mary and I moved here in 1992. So I was very new to this place, to Kalamazoo. That can be unforgiving as a student or a faculty member because of the intensity of the term. So we had a lot of difficult years because my kids were very young. Jacob was waking up at about 4:35 in the morning. Around that time we got Jacob's diagnosis. So about 20 years ago was a difficult place. Yeah.
Oh, I got it.
10 years ago was a better place. When in relationship to my daughter and my son, we had lived long enough together to know each other well. And so the things weren't as new anymore, and so we knew how to be with each other and to know our own flaws and foibles. But Jacob in particular, that meant we could do things that we couldn't have done when he was first diagnosed, going out to eat together, going to a movie, and that for a long span of time, maybe as much as a decade, we just weren't doing any of that. It's very isolating because the potential for Jacob to have a meltdown. So 10 years began to be a point where things got, oh, there's a movie theater. That's great. That's a wonderful thing to do. Family vacations, again, have to be highly planned and highly scheduled. A trip to Disney World that we made took a lot of investigation. At that time, they had a lot of accommodations, or willing to make accommodations for those on the spectrum. So it was getting a doctor's letter so we could come in and get the ability to go through the lines and not wait for the rides. But it was a big deal because we had promised to go to Disney well before we did. And once we got there, Jacob was very engaged in seeing all the Disney characters. The one moment that stands out is when we were signed up to see the Disney princesses. And oh gosh, Jacob was a young teen then, but pretty big. So we're in lines with these little girls, you know. It's really funny because people noticed he was unusual. So we went, and Jacob with Cinderella, it was with Cinderella. These people who do this, so they're all dressed up, look like Cinderella. And Jacob takes this elaborate bow to Cinderella. And there is this small moment of Cinderella, kind of the person in character, just a fraction of a second delay. And then she went right into character and really interacted with Jacob and signed his card. So that was the moment of Disney beauty. The wonder of Disney. Now, think about the people in my life. Jacob is at home. He will continue to need to be, he won't be able to live independently. So he's just turned 23. My daughter will be married this summer. She is going to be turning 25. So we're having lots of discussions about that. Trying to have those discussions be appropriate. He wants her to have 3 kids. Is it 2 boys and a girl, or 2 girls and a boy? And he's already telling his own stories about what he will do. He will take them to school. He will help them out at school. And so he's doing, it kind of going back to what I started talking about. He's telling his own stories in his own way, and we're trying to help him out.
You did what? Or do we need all of my files are already on? I'm a little on it.
Yeah, what is my life philosophy? I'm looking for this song. It's REM, stand in the place that you live. I suppose that there's a philosophy that is kind of like that where is it that you are? And how can you be there? How can you not want to be someplace else, or be with someone else, or have a different life situation? You work to get to where you are, of course, but how do you stand there?
Stand in the place where you live.